All right, our next review topic that we're going to cover is percents. So in your notes in your table of contents, call this percents review. And the first thing I want us to do is look at the standards that y'all are going to have to be able to know / do for SC Ready. And we're going to get to all of these this week. We're just focusing on percents today. We're going to do rates and ratios tomorrow and proportional relationships on Wednesday. So they're all kind of related. Let's see, anything in percents here? I don't see anything. This is the one that deals with percents. So solve real-world and mathematical problems involving ratios and percentages using proportional reasoning. So you have to do multi-step dimensional analysis. That means like converting percent increase and decrease in tax. So we'll review all of those things. First, again, you don't have to copy this if you still have this in your notes. You may want to jot down formulas if you can't remember them. If you remember, I gave y'all a little formula cheat sheet on Google Classroom when we did the percents unit because there were kind of a lot of different little formulas that you had to keep up with. So you may either want to scroll back to that on Google Classroom or just jot them down here so that you have those formulas. The first thing you need to know is the percent proportion. It's part over whole equals percent over 100. Part over whole equals percent over 100. And that helps us find the percent of a number. And we can apply that to finding sales tax, tip, discount, all those things. I actually taught y'all when we were doing sales tax, I taught you a different way than setting up a proportion. I taught you to change the percent of the sales tax to a decimal, and then you multiply the percent times the price, and then that gives you the sales tax. You can also set up the percent proportion to help you find the sales tax. But remember that sales tax is added on to the price of the item. Okay, so let's practice that here with this example. We have all of these orders, and we got the subtotal right here. And they tell us that there's going to be a 5% tax. So hit pause and see if you can find the amount of sales tax, and then add that on to get the total cost of the meal. When you're ready to check your work, hit play. All right, so you see that I took the subtotal, the cost of all the meals, I multiplied times 5%. Remember, we have to change that percent to a decimal by moving the decimal 2 times to the right. We multiply times the cost, and then at the end we have to scoot the decimal over 2 times because there's 2 numbers to the right of the decimal. So I got $7.10 as the sales tax, and then when I add that on, I get $149.10 as the total, including sales tax. If you have a question about what I just did, hit pause and raise your hand, or come see me and I can explain it to you further. Okay, so that's sales tax. Next tip, same process. We know that 15 to 20% of the bill is average for a tip. For excellent service, it's 20 to 25% of the bill. And so we can either use the percent proportion, or we can, like I said, with sales tax, change that percent to a decimal and then multiply times the cost to find the tip that way. And then we, again, add on the tip to the cost of the meal. So let's practice that. So here we have our total that we found earlier in the, like just a second ago in the last example. And we want to find, do we have enough money if we have $175 to tip the waiter 18% of the subtotal? So again, that subtotal price is $142. And I want to see, can I tip 18%? So hit pause, figure out what the tip would be for 18%, and if $175 is going to be enough to cover that. When you're ready to check your work, hit play. So once you multiply the $142 times 18%, you should have gotten $25.56 as the amount of the tip when you work that out. So now we just need to figure out if we add that $25.56 onto the total, are we going to have enough money if we have $175 to pay that amount of tip? So I'm going to add $149.10 plus $25.56, and I'm getting 66 cents, and I'm getting $174. So is that enough money to pay that tip? Yes, that's just enough money. I'm going to have like, what, 34 cents left over? So that is how we do the tip. Okay, commission, same idea. Percentage of an amount of money. And that it's like when you go to buy a car, if you buy a house, the commission is what that salesperson earns as like their salary. And it's a percentage of the price of whatever they have sold. And so you can either use the percent proportion, or again, you can change that percent to a decimal and multiply times the price to find the amount of the commission. And you take that commission away from the selling price of the item to figure out what the amount actually made is, because part of that money in the selling price is going to pay the person who sold the item. So here's an example. At a real estate agency, a real estate agent sold a house for $345,000 and her commission rate is 3%. So I want you to hit pause again, same process. We're going to find what is the amount of the commission, 3% of $345,000, and then we'll figure out how much did the seller actually make on the house when we take that commission away from the sale of the home. Try this one on your own, hit pause. When you're ready to check your work, hit play. All right, so once we multiply that $345,000 times the 3% commission rate, we get, when we move the decimal over twice, we get $10,350 as our commission. That's a pretty nice little payday, isn't it? So that is 3% of $345,000. Now, to figure out how much money the seller actually made on the house, we have to deduct this, take this away from the price of the house. Because that seller has to pay the real estate agent for selling your house. We're going to subtract the $345,000 minus that $10,350 that was the commission. So we get a 5, a 6, a 4, a 3, a 3. So the seller of the house gets to keep $334,650. The other $10,350 is going to go to the real estate agent. Again, if you have a question on any of this, just hit pause and raise your hand or ask me at the end. So that is sales tax, tip, and commission. Next is a separate formula. You may want to jot this down. It's been a long time since we did this. I equals P times R times T. Interest equals P, the principal. Remember, principal means the original amount of money deposited, times R, the interest rate, which is going to be a percent, but we're going to convert the percent to a decimal to plug it into our simple interest formula, times T, the time, and the time has to be in years. Okay, and the interest is like an amount of money that you earn on keeping your money in the bank. It can also work the opposite way. If you borrow money from the bank, they make you pay them back plus an amount of interest, which is like extra money. Okay. If we happen to get an amount of time that's in months instead of years, remember we write it as a fraction over 12. We can't just say 3 for T if it's 3 months. We would think that's 3 years. That's why we have to put it over 12 because there's 12 months in a year. All right, so if you deposited $2,500 at 3.5% annual interest, I'm not going to do all of these. Let's just jump to 4 years. We'll just say after 4 years. So I'm going to first write my formula. I equals P times R times T. And I want to find the amount of simple interest. So I is what I'm trying to find. P, the principal, is the amount of money I deposited, $2,500. The interest rate they told me is 3.5%. But remember, I have to convert that from a percent to a decimal. It already has a decimal point in it, but it's still a percent. So to convert it to a decimal, I move the decimal over 2 times. I fill in that open little loop with a 0. So 0.035. And then I'm going to say for this problem, we're doing 4 years. You want to know how much after 4 years. And then I just punch that in the calculator. 2,500 times 0.035 times 4 years. And that gave me $350 when I did that. Okay? So now, if they wanted to know what the amount is that's the balance of my account, I have to add that to the principal. So $2,500 plus $350, that would give me $2,850 total. So I've earned an extra $350 just by keeping my money in the bank for 4 years. And that is the amount of interest. Okay. Another formula you need to know is percent of change. Like I said, this is on that little cheat sheet formula sheet on Google Classroom, but you may want to jot it down. Change over original equals percent over 100. And how do we find the change? By subtracting the numbers. We subtract the two numbers to find the change. So change over original equals percent over 100. To find the amount of change, we subtract them. And there's two different types of percent of change. We have percent increase and percent decrease. If it's increasing, it's a percent increase. If it's decreasing, it's a percent decrease. That makes sense, right? Right. Okay, so here let's try one example of that. A pet frog measured 51 millimeters, and then it extended to 89 millimeters. What is the percent of change? Figure that one out on your own. When you're ready to check your answer, hit play. All right, so the first thing I had to do was find the change in the little frog's body. So I subtracted up here, 89 minus 51, got 38 is the amount of change. I put that over the original length, 51. So change over original equals n over 100. Then I cross-multiplied. 51 times n is 51n. 38 times 100 is 3,800. Then I divided by the number with the n, and it gave me 74.5 blah, 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 some long decimal. We're going to round that up to the 75%. Okay, so change over original equals percent over 100. That is the percent of change formula. Markup and markdown work the same way as percent of change. You're finding the amount that the price has been marked up. You do that by just finding the change in the price, by subtracting the prices. Markup is an amount that is added on to the amount of the item. So I guess this is kind of saying it backwards. The markup, if you compare the selling price and the base cost, the difference there is the amount that the price has been marked up. So here, let's just try one item because we're almost out of time. If I was finding the amount of markup for the car, first I want to figure out how much has it been marked up. So I'm going to subtract the prices. The amount of change in the price is $4,000. This works just like percent of change. The original price was $8,000. Hello, $8,000. That was that original cost to produce the item. And over 100. Then I would cross multiply 8,000 n equals 400,000. I would divide by 8,000. I'm going to eliminate some zeros to make this easier for me. And 400 divided by 8, that's going to be 50. So it is a 50% markup on the car. 50% markup. How did I get that again? The change in the price over the original price equals n over 100, and then I just solved that proportion. Markdown works the same way. It's the difference between the selling price and the sale price. If the sale price has been marked down, we can find that by doing a proportion. Okay? And it just works the same way. Here's my example for this one very quickly. So the selling price and then the sale price, there's a difference there of $7. So they marked it down by $7. So that's what I'm going to put for the markdown. The original selling price was $28. I see that up here. And then I would do n over 100. So that would be 28n, 28. And oh my goodness, we're struggling here at the end. Equals 700 divided by 28. And then 700 divided by 28 gives me 25. So that would be a 25% markdown, 25% off. Okay? Again, how did I find that? Same as percent of change. Subtract the prices to find the change in the price over the original price equals n over 100. All right, you should have a digits assignment called Percents Practice. If you need help, please let me know. Remember, you do have that formulas cheat sheet on Google Classroom all the way back in our percents unit that you can pull up to help you. Good luck.